From atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West, you are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news that it was refused to use, no doubt, continues now. This is the broadcast for July 22nd in the year of our Lord 2025, promoting God, family, country, protecting life, liberty, and property, using the supreme law of the land with the incredible checks and balances to absolutely chain down bureaucrats and professional do-gooders, using the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. As you know, we reject revolution unless it's the Jesus revolution. Then we're in because we follow the Prince of Peace. Sheriff Max with me, ladies and gentlemen. And I got an interesting little tidbit here this morning from our friend Mike Flynn. And Mike Flynn was asked a question on a broadcast. The broadcast is called Real America's Voice. And the question went like this. Was Mike Pence possibly involved in this? That's Mike Pence. Was he involved in this is the question. And let's listen to Flynn's response. Go ahead.
Was Mike Pence possibly involved in this?
Yeah, and if you read, so I lay this out in my book as well.
Okay.
Mike Pence, was he a dupe? Was he unwitting? Mike Pence was used, no doubt, because there's another piece of evidence that I'm waiting to see come out, and I've asked, and I basically demanded that it comes out, and we know this is a really critical piece of evidence. Sally Yates and Mary McCord, who was head of the National Security Division for the Department of Justice, Sally Yates was the acting attorney general, went over to the White House like 2 or 3 days prior to me having to be resigned and me being fired on the 13th of February, I think it was the date. So Mike Pence, Reince Priebus are in the Situation Room in the White House, and Mary McCord, Andy McCabe is the other name, and Sally Yates was the third name that came and briefed Mike Pence on a document. And Mike Pence he had Reince Priebus call me up while they were all together. And he said, I just reviewed this document. The document shows that you talked about sanctions, something I never talked about ever. I never talked to Mike Pence about them. I never talked about them with anybody. Never talked to the Russian ambassador about sanctions. Mike Pence told me that he just saw a document where I discussed sanctions. So that document is either a lie or Mike Pence was lying. Somebody somewhere in between. What I believe is that Mike Pence, I believe that part of their effort was to try to figure out a way, because later on we now know from other cases that came out as well as mine that there was a 25th Amendment that was going to be put on the table further down the road. So this was an effort to get rid of Donald J. Trump. Now, somebody's going to have to ask Mike Pence. Now, I will tell you, Eric, not a big fan, never was a fan. I would have served with him, no problem. And did. I was very honest with Mike Pence in the interactions that we had. So somebody's going to have to ask Mike Pence, because I have not heard from Mike Pence.
Well, I hope, and again, this is going to be likely a criminal referral.
You can stop it there. So now we're talking about criminal referrals. We're talking about what we're getting, Sheriff Mack, is these overlapping cases. So you still have the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scandals internationally with pay-to-play schemes. You have the Joe Biden auto pen discussion. You have this discussion about Jeffrey Epstein. You now have this discussion about, was Mike Pence possibly involved in this? Now Mike Flynn saying, yeah, this is America's voice. Then President Donald J. Trump said this recently. Biden was grossly incompetent, and the 2020 election was a total fraud. That's President Trump. He continues and says, the evidence is massive and overwhelming. A special prosecutor must be appointed. This cannot be allowed to happen in the United States of America. Let the work begin. Now, Mike Lindell brought this to my attention. The Lindell Offense Fund needs your support now more than ever. We need to fight hard for paper ballots, same-day elections, and ending machine voting. They're right about that. But the reason I bring this up is because the Lindell Fund finishes and says, we won't quit, and we hope you won't quit either. Amen to that. But I bring all this up because we're starting to see all these things overlap. What happens when you get too many investigations that on one hand they run parallel, on the other hand there's a lot of, I don't know, what do you call it, lawfare similarities, dishonesty, former administration, lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating, bearing false witness. I mean, I don't even know how to describe all this. What do you do when it gets that complex and that multi-threaded, Sheriff? How do you separate issues and handle this in meaningful ways? Because if we're not careful, what's going to happen is they're just going to say, oh, man, this whole huge thing was a horrible, big old disaster. But then they'll just put it behind them and say, huh, glad that was over. But yet no accountability, et cetera, et cetera. Sheriff?
Yeah, that's just same old deep state politics of Washington, D.C. and the money and the greed and the dishonesty behind all of it. And, you know, Mike Pence came to the scene as this staunch Christian, and he was playing political games, and it's still excused. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Rand Paul or Tom Massey or Andy Biggs or whoever, or AOC and Crockett, and it just doesn't matter, because all of them have been brainwashed with this thing that, oh, that's politics. And so you can excuse anything as long as you can say, well, that's politics. And so I really appreciate General Flynn and his integrity. You and I both know him very well. And the issue of now Tulsi Gabbard coming out with more information about the Russian hoax, and that Obama actually participated in it intentionally to get rid of President Trump and to ruin his campaign, and the dossier and the Democrat Party and Hillary Clinton all playing these games, and it's all excused in the name of politics. Well, I guess we need to get rid of politics then, because it's as dishonest and it's as horrible as can be, because the real victims here are the American people. And it's our stewardship that they are stealing and destroying, that we the people are in charge of this government, not them. And this, just like we were talking with Josiah, that government believes it's here to take care of us. Well, the scariest thing about that, Sam, is they will, if we allow it. And that's why I'm so glad Josiah is running, because he won't allow it. And we just need a little reminder. That's what CSPOA is, Sam. We are the little reminder across the country that we've got to get back to the Constitution, that we have to have some integrity in upholding and defending the Constitution, just as we swore to when we took our jobs. And so the candidates in this country that try to make people afraid of actually following and obeying the Constitution, what an absolute joke. But all of this political posturing in Washington, D.C. that you're talking about here is just, it's the problem. And Ronald Reagan was right.
It is the problem. And on one hand, I would hope to make things better, and I pray that we will and everything. But Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard now accused the Obama administration of creating, quote, manufactured intelligence to falsely claim Russian interference into President Donald Trump's 2016 victory. So they're claiming election fraud right there. In an interview with Maria Bartiromo, or whatever her name is, Bartiromo, on Sunday Morning Futures is what they call it. Hey, she basically revealed documents that highlighted a years-long coup that took place by the Obama administration, literally for a year, she says. What do you say to that, Sheriff?
Yeah, there's, big surprise, huh, Sam? Just real big surprise. But it seems like also, though, Tulsi Gabbard and Kristi Noem and Kash Patel are kind of like walking on each other's stuff, I mean, when they came up with Homeland Security, I totally disagreed with it even becoming another bureaucracy of Washington, D.C. And George W. did that just to try to show people we're doing something about all the terrorism and the 9/11 attack. And so, of course, we'll form another bureaucracy to make people safer, even though we already had all of that already established. So
yeah, Gabbard highlighted over 100 documents showing this conspiracy led by President Obama before his departure from office. Now, that is big stuff, ladies and gentlemen. That is big stuff. The Clinton campaign, we'll get into that too. Hang tight.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
This is a battle between truth and deceit. A battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com.
Can a nation conceived in liberty carry its head high if it denies protection to the youngest and most vulnerable of its citizens? Can a country founded on God-given rights continue to thrive without understanding that life is a precious gift from our Creator? As a physician, I have looked into the eyes of 1-pound babies. I have cradled their small bodies in the palm of one hand. I defy those who are careless, who would disregard life and look at these tiny little miracles and say, we're not going to protect that.
But I believe there will come a time when we are all judged on whether or not we took a stand in defense of all life from the moment of conception until our last natural breath. One thing I promise you, I will always take a stand for life.
All right, so Tulsi Gabbard outlined over 100 documents showing that this conspiracy led by President Obama before his departure from office. It went on for a year. Now, the Clinton campaign and the National Democratic Committee were fined by the Federal Election Commission in 2022 for their involvement in the fake Steele dossier. So this isn't debatable anymore. We're beyond all this. The FBI, by the way, did not review thumb drives containing evidence during its investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server. Yeah, they just revealed a new report from the Justice Inspector General report or whatever that said, hey, they never even inspected the thumb drives. The appendix, they say, which Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley released, indicates that the FBI considered but never sought permission to access or examine highly classified materials relating or relevant to the investigation of Hillary Clinton's email scandal. Now, it then finishes and says James Comey, former FBI director, was criticized for failing to conduct a thorough investigation. And Attorney General Pam Bondi commended efforts by Grassley to get to the bottom of this. They say the materials on the thumb drives included emails from former President Barack Obama and sensitive State Department information, raising concerns about executive and, quote, congressional privilege. Witnesses interviewed during the report believe that, hey, reviewing the thumb drive would not have altered the investigation. We don't know that at all. But here's the bottom line. Why isn't Trump moving to arrest people, or Kash Patel, or Pam Bondi, or someone? How far down the line do we have to get for these overlapping fraud realities to eventually demand accountability? Sheriff, I don't understand it.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard's actually calling for the prosecution of Obama. He said that he should.
That she is.
Yeah, no kidding. But
will we get traction is the question.
Well, if he gets prosecuted, I'm going to be shocked. But I mean, he deserves it. But so does how many people in the Biden administration? Same thing. You know, that for the treason and everything they did, bringing in all the cartels and the international terrorists, and how many now people that the Democrat Party is totally supporting, keeping all the pedophiles, the human traffickers. It's going on and on and on. And there's so many in Washington D.C. that could be prosecuted, and rightfully so. But I don't think any of them will, because the system of corruption and the system of the deep state won't allow it. And it's like the Democrats and the Republicans. What do they do together? Where do the Democrats and Republicans really come together? In preventing third parties from being successful. That's where. And that's kind of like the deep state. They will all come together to protect the subterfuge, the money, the power, and not expose the real truth behind politics in this country. And that it is a big, corrupt, deep state subterfuge. And that's really the problem here. Barack Obama won't be prosecuted. The only trouble that Trump will get is if the Republicans lose in the midterms. And there's going to be real trouble there, because I believe it's going to happen. Historically, it happens just about every time on the midterms. So the Republicans are not going to have much power a year and a half from now. And there won't,
and that's
Trump's
primarily because they're wasting their opportunities, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean right now,
I look at this Hillary Clinton thing, and when did we first hear about her file server email problems?
Oh, wow. Gosh, I don't remember the date.
I'm trying to figure out when, right?
Yeah.
I'll find this out here. When did the Clinton email scandal happen?
It was right when she was getting ready to run.
Right.
If she hadn't run, then it probably would have never come up.
You're probably right on that score. And that's kind of the interesting thing is, folks, but here's what I'm wondering. We're finding out right now that the FBI covered it up and didn't look into some thumb drives. Well, what good would it do to look into thumb drives? We already know their guilt, right?
Well, look what Comey did.
I don't know where you go with this. When you smash evidence with a hammer and use bleach bit or whatever to destroy it on your hard drive and all this kind of stuff, how much evidence do you have to find except for that they literally destroyed evidence? All right. So 2009 to 2013, I think, is when the email scandal happened. On March 2nd, 2015 is when this story broke. She used her personal email extensively while at the State Department, which raised concerns about security and compliance with federal record-keeping regulations.
Yeah, she was Secretary of State.
So this thing broke in like 2015, but it related to like 2009 to 2013. Okay, so here's my question, though. We're literally a decade after that, Sheriff.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just going, we're really finding out right now that there was some thumb drives that they never looked at? That's fine. But then they're like, oh, but it wouldn't have changed the outcome even so. So here's how you do it. You don't leak the actual evidence. You just leak the details about it. Hey, there was a thumb drive that never got researched, but it probably wouldn't have made a difference anyway. Next. They're leaking this information so late in the game, so minimalistically, not leveling with the American people about the truth, to where I don't think that there's going to be any action taken on this whatsoever. I know it's wrong, But you look at all these overlapping stories and you go, at some point, will something matter? Or is it just not going to matter? What do you think, Sheriff?
Well, they'll continue to go after some small things like make-up stuff like on Sheriff Scott Jenkins. He gets prosecuted. For what? Taking a donation to his campaign from somebody on his search and rescue squad. And the money was put into his personal safe and never used. Never used. And how much time did he get for that? 10 years in prison. Barack Obama took $300,000 in an illegal donation. He had to pay a little fine to the FEC. And here's Scott Jenkins facing a death sentence, going to prison, basically for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that's because the Democrats are for real and the Republicans aren't, it looks like to me. When it's their turn, they're all ready to arrest people, buddy.
Well, yeah, but Sam, remember the farce, and I know you remember it well. Remember the farce of James Comey, the director of the FBI, said, oh, yeah, we did our investigation on Hillary. And every single thing that they investigated, he said, this is what Hillary said. Was that true? No, she lied. It wasn't true. And he went through 6 different things that she was investigated on. And he showed that they had the evidence that she lied and that she did exactly what she was charged with. Well, she never got charged. What they were investigating her for. And then what did he say? He came out with the deep state corrupt politics of Washington, D.C. He came out with the answer. But no one will prosecute her. That's not his call. He should have just turned it over to an investigator. A prosecutor. Turn it over to the prosecutor and let them make the decision. But he wouldn't even do that. So here he is, showing her guilt and then covering for her to the entire world. And, of course, she goes right on with her Clinton Foundation raising money from Middle Eastern countries that hate us. And she didn't care where the money came from, and neither did they. And there they are, walking off into the sunset with their corrupt money and their corrupt deep state participation. And then Comey wants us to take him serious.
And there's an encouraging article from townhall.com, which I find fascinating. It basically says that, hey, Ghislaine Maxwell should be going to visit Congress soon.
Hope so.
It looks like Ghislaine Maxwell will be paying Congress a visit soon, writes Jeff Charles over at townhall.com. And I look at this thing and I just go, okay, the House Oversight Committee wants to interview her and talk about things. She's serving a 20-year sentence right now for her role in Epstein's operation. She said next time, though, she's going to discuss high-profile individuals who allegedly took part in Epstein's sex trafficking schemes or activities. And so, this is the first major move by Congress to bring Epstein's accomplices into the spotlight. The walls are starting to shake. The question is, will anything really happen with this? Anyway, let's hang tight, talk to Sheriff Mack about this one, because, testifying before Congress sounds like we're getting to something. But my experience says it's nothing but political theater. Let's ask the good sheriff about that in seconds. You're listening to Liberty Roundtable Live.
Exposing corruption, informing citizens, pursuing liberty. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. The families of 4 Idaho murder victims, not the only ones, demanding an answer to the nagging question, why?
President Trump also wants to know why Brian Kohberger killed 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. Against the wishes of the families, Kohberger was given a plea deal in exchange for a guilty plea, and in doing so, will avoid the death penalty. But the plea deal did not require Kohberger to explain how and why he stabbed the 4 students to death while they slept. President Trump posted on Truth Social that while life imprisonment is tough, it's better than the death penalty, and he hopes the judge makes Kohberger explain why he did it. Kohberger is expected to receive 4 life terms when he's sentenced on Wednesday. Tasha Stevens reporting.
More than 200,000 pages of files relating to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. have been released by the Trump administration. Those records had been under a court-ordered seal since 1977, but in January, President Trump signed an executive order declassifying the files, along with those relating to President Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy. One GOP senator fears the president's health could suffer as a result of his constant battles with and attacks by political foes at home and abroad.
Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville told New York talk show host John Catsimatidis on Sunday President Trump's health may be taking a hit from his ongoing battles with bad actors all over the world, but also with what he called the radicals in this country. In his words, every day it's almost like a fistfight. The White House announced last week Mr. Trump has been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency. It affects the flow of blood returning from the legs to the heart. Bob Agnew reporting.
Parts of the east getting ready for another intense heat wave as the high heat and humidity enveloping the country's midsection expands eastward as we head toward the weekend. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. You work hard, you build wisely, your home has become one of your greatest assets. If you're staying put this summer, this might be the perfect time to put that equity to work. Whether it's funding a second home, helping your kids get their start, or simply creating more margin in your financial life, Mike and Brian at Fellowship Home Loans are the only ones I trust to guide you through it. They've done loans for my family. They tailor every loan to fit your goals. Fellowship is a direct lender and operates with your best interest in mind. If you're looking to access your equity through a refi or exploring a HELOC for some cash this summer for a second property, or maybe tackle those updates you've been putting off, start with people you trust, people I trust. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character, where educating both hearts and minds brings about academic excellence. There is a school in American Fork where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. Based on LDS principles and a love of country, now in our 39th year, American Heritage School is accepting fall enrollment for kindergarten through high school. What would you do for your child? Give them an education that will prepare them for life. Located east of the Temple in American Fork, American Heritage School is a remarkable and affordable alternative. Visit us, find us online, or in the Yellow Pages. American Heritage School in American Fork.
Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
Live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right, it's Sam Bushman and the good sheriff, Sheriff Richard Mack, CSPOA.org. Become a member of the posse today, would you please? It looks like Ghislaine Maxwell will be paying Congress a visit soon, writes Jeff Charles over at townhall.com. He says the House Oversight Committee has reportedly approved a motion to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell. That's the accomplice of sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year sentence for her role in his operation. They say it's suspected that she will discuss high-profile individuals who allegedly took part in Epstein's sex trafficking activities. Sheriff, do you think that this is going to bear any fruit? Do you think this is worthy of doing?
Well, I think I'm kind of shocked that they would actually bring her there when Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, won't even allow a vote to come regarding the Epstein case. So I'm wondering.
Yeah, so the Democrats are pushing for the Epstein files to be released now, and the Republicans blocked it, right?
Yeah, and it used to be the other way around. During the Biden administration, the Republicans wanted to push it forward, and the Democrats were fighting it.
Well, and this is exactly why the founders warned against parties, because it becomes a party discussion, not a truth-seeking discussion, right?
Of course, and that's the Democrats and Republicans. That's the epitome of their divisiveness. It just depends on who's in power and who they're trying to hurt at the time, and the political success of one means we have to fight the other, and vice versa. And it's so corrupt, Sam. And right now, Representative Paulina Luna wants to refer Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, for criminal prosecution. So what is going on, Sam?
I don't know the answer. But here's the latest headline to even make this more confusing, because I believe all these things relate to one another.
Yeah,
Gabbard submits criminal referral to the DOJ over Obama admin's manufactured Russian collusion hoax, writes Blake Wolf. So now we literally have Tulsi submitting this for criminal referral. We got a lot coming up. But here's the problem.
Sam,
did they wait too long for this?
All along. All of that
I
evidence
agree.
was there.
That's
all
right.
along. Yeah.
That's right. But we didn't have somebody with enough courage to bring it forward. At least now we've got somebody bringing it forward. Is that going to make the difference?
I don't think it's courage. I think it's political theater.
So in Tulsi Gabbard, you think she's just playing political theater?
Mm-hmm. I do.
I wish you were wrong, but I bet you're right. What I think
I like
her.
Her.
Give us,
I really like
give
her.
us so many issues that we just can't deal with any of them. And then at the end of the day, they're all going to be swept under the rug, because we're going to run out of time, Sheriff. We've waited 7 months before all this starts. We're going to start running up against an election and different things, and they're not going to be willing to deliver on it. One good news, piece is this. House Republicans approved Trump's rescission package, now heading to the president's desk for his signature, writes Brooke Mallory. So at least we got $9 billion. Now here's the interesting thing in my mind. We went from $2 trillion ambition by Elon Musk to $9 billion reality. After Doge cuts falter, Congress struggles to get the rescission bill even done. They went from literally $2 trillion to $9 billion.
Nothing.
Sheriff, I don't even know how to respond to this.
Yeah. I remember when Ronald Reagan said, we're not just talking about millions now, we're talking about billions. He spoke at BYU when I was a student there. And he was talking about how the federal government is just way overspending, way overtaxing. And he was literally said, we're not just talking about millions in debt right now and millions of spending. Now they're talking about billions. Well, here they go. and a pittance of $9 billion is being saved, when in reality, as you point out, it was the humongous $2 trillion that was originally proclaimed by DOGE that they needed to stop of wasteful spending. Well, obviously they need to add the $1 billion a year close to it for Planned Parenthood, but there's even very little talk about that. But if they would, if Trump would still get serious, and and Congress still get serious about saving the American people, then don't just charge Jerome Powell criminally. Abolish the Federal Reserve, abolish the IRS, get rid of the federal income tax, or if you just have to keep that, make it a fair tax, which is a flat fair tax for everyone. Nobody's charged over 10%, and you would see the greatest prosperity proliferated across this country that you've ever seen.
Amen. Do you think Donald has the guts to do it? Will he do it?
The Democrats and Republicans won't do it. They want to control, and they want to be able to use the IRS anytime they need to attack their enemies. And that's what the IRS has been mostly used as.
Well,
they're supposed to mostly get full.
We got to really work on this a bit, too, because the latest headline says this: only 6 U.S. House members vote against sending Israel another $500 million in military aid. It's an article written by Adam Dick at Ron Paul Institute or whatever. I look at this and I think only 6 people voted against sending another $500 million to Israel. Now, you can debate if you like or dislike Israel or whatever you want to say, but where do we get $500 million to send over there when we're $37 trillion in debt with no end in sight? I mean, at some point, common sense has to prevail here. And if it doesn't prevail by common sense, it's going to eventually avail itself by force, meaning we won't be able to borrow the money.
Well,
we won't
common
be able to,
sense,
our credit rating will melt down. At some point, it's going to change, right?
Common sense just doesn't exist there, and it's not the common law. It's not the common sense. It's just common corruption, and that's all it is. It's so humongous, and it's such in Washington, D.C. DNA that it's going to take.
Oh, did we lose you, Sheriff? Oh, we'll try to get the good sheriff back. So 6 U.S. House members voted against sending Israel another $500 million. I just don't know why we want to send Israel so much money. It just shocks me that there's no end in sight to the spending that these people think they can carry out on our behalf. There's no fiscal restraint. There's zero accountability. Okay? I mean, what remains is a choice: we either demand transparency or we accept that justice is only for the weak, never for the powerful. Isn't that the bottom line here, folks? We have a choice, right? And this choice is very serious. Are you back, Sheriff? All right. We'll try to go ahead and get him back. But, what's left is a choice. We've got to decide, what are we going to focus on? Are we going to demand accountability here? Or is this just going to be business as usual? That's really kind of the ultimate question I think we have to ask ourselves as a people, right? What remains is a choice. We either demand transparency or we accept that justice is selective, only for the weak, never for the powerful, right? Justice is only for the weak, never for the powerful. I just don't understand how we, the people, can idly sit by and let this stuff happen. And we had hoped Trump would fix it. But you can never put your trust or your hope in one person, okay? So what remains, Sheriff, I'm saying about all these scandals, we either demand transparency or we accept that justice is only for the weak, never for the powerful. And isn't that really what we're down to?
Well, that certainly seemed to be the case with Sheriff Scott Jenkins. Yeah. Oh, let's go after him. Oh, let's go after the Amish farmers. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'll show people we're doing something. Put these Amish farmers out of business and put them in jail. Yeah. And oh, yeah, Scott Jenkins. Yeah, we'll go after him. But the big time criminals, the people who are in charge of all this human trafficking, they go marching on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hang tight. I got a few more stories for you before the end of the hour. One of them is gun owners declared war. Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. Hang tight. Liberty Roundtable Live with the good sheriff, Sheriff Richard Mack.
As the United States boldly stepped forward in the glorious light provided by its new Constitution in 1787, the nations of the earth were in awe of the newfound strength and hope of this free land. Today, the nation stands at a crossroads. A divergence from the original intent put forth in the United States Constitution has brought grave threats to our beloved nation. A miracle is needed if the United States is to survive. That miracle is again the pure application of the United States Constitution. I'm Scott Bradley. In my To Preserve the Nation book and lecture series, I bring forth truths that will help raise up a new generation of statesmen like those noble Americans who founded this land. Vigorous application of these principles will invigorate and restore the nation, and we may become again the freest, most prosperous, most respected, and happiest nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com to begin that restoration.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcasts at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
All right, I got two contrasting stories that kind of highlight where we are in America. CBS announced that it will end Stephen Colbert's The Late Show. I guess after the upcoming TV series or season ends, they cited a, quote, financial decision. They say nothing wrong with the host, it's all good. Well, at the same time that's happening, Scott Jennings, it debuted a new radio talk show on Salem Radio Network on Monday. So Jennings getting, in my mind, a promotion. Colbert going away. They say that there's a possible rumor that Jennings might run for the Senate seat held by Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. So there's a lot of tidbit there. The new media is taking center stage, Sheriff. I don't know how to say it. Scott Jennings getting literally promoted and focus, while Stephen Colbert basically melting down and going away. They claim he did nothing wrong, but at the same time, you kind of wonder, why are they laying off all these people? No money? What's the real deal? And it's very interesting to watch the media landscape change, Sheriff.
Well, it is, and a lot of people are making a lot about that. Look, it's crazy that this is a political deal with Stephen Colbert. That's really crazy. But you know why? Because his show, along with two or three others, late night shows that used to be so entertaining, from Johnny Carson and David Letterman, really great, funny, very entertaining, because it lasted for decades. And now, what is it? It's politics. And not only that, but Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel and a few others have all literally made a living by degrading and assailing Donald Trump. And it's wearing thin. It's getting old. And these other networks, because they're liberal and they hate Trump too, they went, yeah, go ahead. But when you see Donald Trump go out in public to stadiums and to MMA fights and all this other stuff, the crowds go crazy for him. So who really is supporting this type of stuff? It's just big media, big business media. And Stephen Colbert, it's worn thin, and, you know, people are tired of it. It's not entertaining anymore. I don't want to turn to these late night shows and be politicked. I don't want it anymore. I never wanted that. And it's ruined their own business.
The good news is the American people are agreeing with you. One of the other things that I have a real problem with is a lot of these radio and TV networks and literally how many commercials they run. It is absolutely insane. All right, gun owners just declared war on the Postal Service. And believe it or not, they might just win, writes Jeff Charles over at townhall.com. Just getting a lot of play today. Gun rights advocacy groups are suing the United States Postal Service, the Justice Department, and several government officials over this idea. There's a federal statute, supposedly, that bars American citizens from mailing handguns. You have to have an FFL to mail a handgun, da-da-da-da-da. The lawsuit challenges a 1927 law that prohibits those who do not hold a FFL or federal firearms license, then you can't send guns to the mail. But they believe that we're on fine footing with this one. The lawsuit argues that the restrictions criminalizes ordinary lawful behavior and violates the Second Amendment. Okay. Anyway, it goes on and says, hey, you can't, mail these things if you're just Joe Blow and da-da-da. There's a huge lawsuit about this. You think they'll gain traction, Sheriff?
Yeah, that's a weird one, Sam. Because they have every right to do this, and I really don't know where this one's going to go. But that they've made it this far, and they seem to have some legitimacy. I mean, I'm totally with them, absolutely. But this could be a huge case for the Second Amendment, and I hope it is. But that we have to continue to do this for the Second Amendment, fight every administration, both parties, and the bureaucracies that they have. I mean, the Postal Service is not even a bureaucracy. They're supposed to be a letter carrying business, but everything's politicized now, and usually to the detriment and victimization of the American people. So somebody's standing up and saying no more. Good for them.
All right, what do you think we should be doing? I mean, Donald J. Trump is right now saying Biden was grossly incompetent and the 2020 election was a total fraud. The evidence is massive and overwhelming. A special prosecutor must be appointed that shouldn't be allowed to continue. And that's huge, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is. And it coincides with Paulina Luna referring Jerome Powell for prosecution. Sam, what did you say they were saving? How many billion with DOJ cuts?
Well,
did you say
he wanted
$2 billion?
He wanted $2 trillion, but all they got was $9 billion.
Well, you know what? The Federal Reserve spent $2.5 billion to remodel their offices and buildings. $2.5 billion, Sam. How much did those buildings cost in the first place, for heaven's sakes? $2.5 billion. And who gave them approval to spend that money? Sam, that just proves they're an entity to themselves. They do not have to ask permission. They're not part of the federal government. Even though they were originally, quote, formed by the federal government, the federal government, the United States Congress, had no authority to abdicate their responsibility to private bankers to take over the coining of our money and establishing the value thereof. This is so outrageous, Sam. And now Cynthia Loomis, U.S. Senator Wyoming. Anyway, I thought she was in Congress, or the House of Representatives, but it says that she's on the Senate Banking Committee. Republican from Wyoming. She's totally backing Paulina Luna in her attacks on Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, that Trump is now considering, well, maybe I should fire him. If he won't do what if he won't do what I tell him, then maybe I should fire him. Well, maybe you should, President Trump, and abolish the entire Federal Reserve while you're at it. You want to restore the economy? Get rid of the Federal Reserve. Let's start getting serious about getting rid of the deep state. And that's probably the deepest part of the deep state that there could be. And with these two ladies now coming forward, the gutsy lady, Senator Cynthia Loomis from Wyoming, and Rep. Paulina Luna, I believe she's from Florida. But they're going after Jerome Powell. Join them, Mr. President. Join with them, and let's get this taken care of. Man, just if he really wanted to deflect all the stuff going on with the Epstein case, abolish the Federal Reserve, abolish the IRS, and abolish the federal income tax. Wow.
It could be done super easy.
It really could, Sam.
If
it
we
really
could. And Trump is teased about it, so we know that he knows about it. The question is, will he really have the stomach for it, or will he just tease about it? Is it like lock Hillary up? Not really. Mexicans are going to pay for the wall? Not really. Is it that kind of deal? Or will we really see traction? And that's, in my mind, out of this administration and out of this latest Congress. If we don't see action now, I'm afraid they're going to get slaughtered coming up, because there's just been nothing significant that I can point to. What's the most significant thing you can point to? And the answer is release of the J6 prisoners and protecting the border to a great degree. I mean, those are his big wins so far. Everything else is a meltdown loss at this point.
Well, you know what? Doing those two things in the first 6 months, I think, if that's all he accomplished the first 6 months, great. But now we've got other things to do. And there's a list of things we've really got to do. And right now, it just seems to be political posturing about Epstein. Epstein is the big thing going on. Look, if you want to deflect attention, abolish the Federal Reserve and defund Planned Parenthood. Just those two things, which they've already talked about anyway, and they need to do, especially Federal Reserve, especially Planned Parenthood.
Well, now you've got me wanting to. All I can tell you is I want to have President Mac. I want somebody to really get serious about this, and I'm done with playing games around the edge and stuff.
Well, I guess I could still run for president. I still could run for president because I'm only 72, and I'd be 74 next election. So.
Yeah, you're way younger than the other guys, aren't you?
I'm way younger than those other two old guys. Those two old white guys.
Sheriff Mack, thank you, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, the posse's where it's at. If you want to work behind the most local elected executive called the county sheriff, there's 3,000 of them that can take action on your behalf and uphold the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. We need you to become part of the posse today. CSPOA.org. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being alongside for the ride. We are syndicated by the Loving Liberty Radio Network, lovingliberty.net. Spread the word. Download the iPhone or the Android app and listen to your heart's content for free, or listen online at lovingliberty.net. I'm Sam Bushman. God save the Republic of the United States of America.